And I could probably guarantee you that he wasn't really working on himself too much during this season that we're talking about here. Why? Because when we are not working on ourselves, you better believe those character defects are going to start coming out more and more. So complacency, I assume no one struggles with that one. We're going to go right into it. And I was like, God, like, where are we going with this in the Bible? Are we doing some topical scriptures on it? And God's like, man, no, we're going to talk about my man Peter. We're just going to go through Peter's life here. Simon Peter, he's always been my absolute favorite. Jesus saw the gifts that he had, like he knew his purpose and plan for him. Not only did God use him for some mighty things, but like we also got to see Peter's realness along the way. We got to see that he was human also, and so through his struggles and through his trials, we can learn from that. We're just going to kind of go just like piece by piece, a few things that happen at the back end of the story of the Gospels between Peter and Jesus, and we'll see what God gives us and what we can learn from that tonight. Where we're going in our first verse here from Matthew chapter 16, just a little prequel on it. Basically, Jesus he already knew what was coming next, right? He was trying to tell his disciples, hey guys, just so you know, God's got a calling on my life, and at some point I'm going to be having to go make a trip to this cross here. I'm going to be wrongly persecuted, and I'm going to be raising up again in 3 days after that. But yet Peter, he thinks he knows better than Jesus, and he's going on and telling him, and Peter's like, absolutely not. Like, Jesus, that's not happening. You got this one wrong, right? That's not going to happen to you. And it seems that Pete wants to tell Jesus, right? Hey, here's what God wants you to do next, Jesus. Not what you're talking about, right? And that's when we're at our first verse here, Matthew 16, verse 23 out of the NIV. Bible says, Jesus turned and said to Peter, "Get behind me, Satan." The famous line, man. You are a stumbling block to me. You do not have in mind the concerns of God, but merely human concerns. Ouch. Right? Let's just start here, right? Oh, Pete thinks he heard from God a little better than Jesus did, and he's like, hey, I got a word for you. You ever have someone that had a word from God for you, and was, or maybe they came up to you and they're like, hey, God told me to tell you this, and this, right? I always kind of laugh at that a little bit, like maybe they got some spiritual wisdom that you weren't privileged enough to receive, and so they just want to bestow it upon your life, right? And while, like, yes, this can happen in certain situations, but I don't know about you, I'd rather just hear all that right from the source, right? Like I would rather be in tune with God so God could tell me what I need to be doing or bring some things to my attention that I need to work on in my life, right? And I'll take it a step further. It's dangerous to get, oh, well, God told me advice from people that aren't plugged in and in tune with the Father. That's really dangerous, right? Someone could come in new and, oh, well, someone said that God told me to do this, but I don't know, man. Are they plugged in? Are they in tune with God? Or are they just going off what's on the top of their heads, right? And so, man, we can go so in depth with the Bible, talking with a brother of mine, like, you know, sometimes like I would like to go more in depth, and I realize not everyone maybe walking in here knows of all these Bible stories, but we got to look like, how do we get to that point that Peter missed this so badly, right? And so if you go back through the previous chapters, maybe you can do that in your own time later, we can see that that there's a story of, you know, Peter actually got the opportunity to walk on water, but unfortunately he took his focus off of Jesus, and that caused him to drown and kind of fall out a little bit. There's a couple stories in chapters after that where Jesus was speaking parables and biblical principles, and Peter wasn't understanding. He had to, I'm just not getting this one, Jesus. I need further clarification on this, right? That's why we got to read this stuff. And now we're to the point where Peter misjudges what Jesus was supposed to do next. And it kind of seems like Jesus just had enough of it and kind of let him have it, right? Like, no, get behind me, Satan, right? What did he say? You're a stumbling block to me. You don't have in mind the concerns of God, but merely human concerns. Like maybe it was Jesus saying, like, Peter, you're not in tune with the Father the same way that I am at this current moment, brother. Right? Or maybe take a step further. Maybe he was just going through a season. He's trying to tell him, you're not in tune with the Father the same way that you used to be here lately. Maybe that complacency is kind of sneaking in here. Jesus saying, I'm in tune with the Father and what he's been telling me, right, recently, because I haven't been complacent, right? Like it seems that you have been recently. Peter, you've been sleeping in and I've been up early every morning praying. That's what Jesus is saying. We'll talk about that later. Like we just said, maybe for old Peter was like, you've been worried about all these human real life situations going on, right? But I'm in tune with the Father. I know what the Father wants me to do next. I'm not worried about all this other stuff like you've been lately, Peter. Or maybe he's just saying like, seems like you've been getting a little lost lately, Pete. But I'm hearing the Father loud and clear. Complacency comes in many forms, y'all. But I can almost guarantee this. I can almost guarantee that the first place that complacency will rear its ugly head is in our communication with and understanding of God. That's where it's going to start, right? If we are not in tune, is the fill in the blank. If we are not in tune with the Father, the effects of that will spill out into many different areas. Right? Think about that. I guarantee, like, if you just go back and look at maybe some of the complacent seasons you've already experienced, or maybe you just look back and analyze on some of these seasons where it just doesn't seem like it's working out, things aren't clicking like they once were, I can almost guarantee you can trace it back to, like, I haven't been spending time with God the way that I once did. I've been slacking in this area. That communication's off. That knowledge is off. I haven't been hearing anything from God lately on what my next steps are, right? We see from Peter in this story, he wasn't focused on some of the things that he should have been focused on here recently, leading up to this point. He wasn't understanding biblical principles the way that he should have been understanding them, and he wasn't hearing from God correctly on what he should be doing next. And I'm like, man, like that tells me we got to stay ready, y'all. We got to stay ready. If complacency can sneak in Jesus' right-hand man life, it can sneak in any one of our lives, right? And so I promise you, just be on guard against this, because the enemy's going to try to sneak in here first. He wants us to be complacent in that relationship with God, so we're not in tune with the Father and getting that communication in with him, that understanding. Sometime after this, Jesus, he knows that the crucifixion is right around the corner. Like, can you imagine having like a pre-knowledge that you're about to experience the most excruciating pain that a human being could ever go through, right? And what that was going to be like for the next few days of suffering for him. And so we see Jesus, like in the Garden of Gethsemane, he enters into his biggest time of distress life. Like if there was one time he never needed to be in prayer, like this was it. And so what's interesting in the story that he brings the disciples, but then he brings Peter, James, and John a little further in with him. He brings his inner circle with him, and he has pretty much just one message for them. He just asks one thing. We're going to go ahead and read that next set of scriptures out of Matthew 20:26 there, a few verses. Then he said to them, he being Jesus, my soul is overwhelmed with sorrow to the point of death. Just stay here and keep watch with me. In other words, guys, I am going through it. I need you guys now more than ever. Can you do me one favor? Just don't pass out, right? I need you, right? I need you now more than ever. Next, he leaves, he goes in depth in prayer, he comes back, verse 40 there. Then he returned to his disciples, and what'd he do? Found them sleeping. Exactly what I asked you not to do, but it's all right. He's trying to give them a warning here, like, couldn't y'all keep watch with me for 1 hour? He asked Peter. That's kind of interesting, right? There's all three of them, but he's looking at Peter directly like, bro, you couldn't just stay, you're my right-hand man, you couldn't just stay up with me for 1 hour? Watch and pray so that you will not fall into temptation, because the spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak. He's trying to tell them, like, don't get lulled to sleep right now because y'all got some crazy trials coming up, and I need you to be in tune with the Father more than ever right now. Like, now's not the time for sleep. It's time for communication with God, right? And so he leaves, and he went through his prayers again, and he's coming back thinking, like, they got to have my back this time. But nope. Right? Verse 45, he returned to the disciples again for the third time and said, are you still sleeping and resting? Like, what are you guys doing, man? Guys, if we don't think that we're going to get attacked in this area with complacency, we got another thing coming, right? The enemy wants nothing more than to lull us to sleep. And I'm talking literally and figuratively, right? Think about that. All right? The enemy is probably going to come at us in one of two ways here. Like the first being this, being absolutely so busy and moving in so many different directions that it just causes us at some point to get tired, or maybe even worse, it causes us to not function at our peak capacity. When your mind goes in all different directions, man, it just, that unrest comes back in, and it's like we're doing like a whole bunch of things at like a C level instead of an A. Because we got so much stuff going on. All right, that's maybe one way the enemy can kind of lull us to sleep there figuratively. Like yeah, we got them so busy doing all this good stuff that they don't have time to focus on what's important and put any work or effort into that part of it. That makes sense?
Absolutely.
Or two is just that the enemy just gonna make it like just flat out that you're just tired. Like whether it's your health or your mind being so consumed, that drowsiness kicking in, whatever that looks like having us sleeping is actually a good place to be for the devil, right? Why? Because we can't really do anything effectively when we're passed out. Think about that. So for old Peter, man, when I try to analyze this, like, I don't know if it was a combination of both maybe for him. The Bible wasn't clear. Maybe for old Peter, it was just that he was so busy doing good stuff. Let's put that in quotation marks there. Because we can get real busy doing good stuff. Right? We can get real busy doing a lot of ministry. We can get real busy working 60, 70 hours a week. Making money, right? I'm coming up. We can get real busy with the kids and our spouses and taking care of the house and trying to get all this stuff back that we once lost. We can get real busy with all this good stuff. And man, that can cause us to be tired over time. Or maybe for Peter, it was that complacency had just really been kicking in lately, and it had just literally caused him to be so flat out tired that every single time he lay down or he sat down, it was over with. Maybe that's what he was experiencing. I'm not sure, but a great way to render us completely ineffective, y'all. That's the blank, ineffective, to doing anything good in life and in our communication with God is to lull us to sleep. I'm going to say it again. A great way to render us completely ineffective to doing anything good in life and in our communication with God is to lull us to sleep. Real simple. We can't do much when we are sleeping, both literally and figuratively. Let me tell you a perfect example, man. I remember coming up after, Bonnie, my wife, probably prayed for me for like a year to actually pick up the Bible when I was first sober, and I just didn't want to open that thing up. But when I finally did, right, when God like really started speaking to me, it took a little bit, right, but I just became like a beast and like a passion to want to know more. Like I was hungry to read. I wanted to be up in the Bible. I wanted to read motivational books, like all this good inspirational type stuff. And so I would be reading it all the time, and then I don't know, it just seemed like just over time, I just hit this season where I just wasn't doing that near as much as I once was. Probably because I was so busy doing a lot of good stuff, right? I was doing a lot of good stuff, but I wasn't putting any time and energy into that. And so finally, I just remember like, I was ready to come back from that. Like, I got to come back off of that. I got to get back in the Word more, and I got to start reading some other stuff. And I just remember coming back and just cracking open the Bible, man. And let me tell you what happened next. I'm nodding out. right? Like, I don't know if that's just me, right? But I'd be opening the Bible trying to read something. All right, now's the time. And I don't know, just like a few verses in and I'm starting to pass out. Or open up a book and I start to read that, and just all of a sudden I just find myself passing out at the desk reading it. It's like the enemy was lulling me to sleep, because I was perfectly fine before that. But let me pick up the Bible and try to do something good and get some good inspirational stuff into my mind, and all of a sudden I start to get tired. Like, if that's not spiritual warfare, I don't know what is. I don't know if anyone else can relate to that, right? Or maybe it's, I try to watch a message or a motivational speaker online, and suddenly I just find myself getting tired or not even really paying attention to it. It doesn't pique my interest, but let me get on social media or pop on to Netflix or whatever, and suddenly I'm good. Like, I got all the energy in the world watching that. That's spiritual warfare, y'all. And so we got to be on guard against getting lulled to sleep. At some point, we got to analyze our own life, right? Like, I get that some of our jobs are more demanding than others. I get that some of us are doing way more stuff throughout the day than other people are. Maybe some of us have medical stuff going on. Maybe it's something you need to get taken care of. I don't know what it is, but at some point, we're just going to have to resolve, like I'm not passing out today when I go to open the Word. like I don't know. I don't care if I got to read the Bible standing up in my office or in the bathroom, whatever it is. Be on the phone while I'm standing up in the shower, put it up there on the audio. I don't know what it looks like, but like, I'm not passing out today. I'm gonna get this word in. Right? I'm gonna read an inspirational book. I'm gonna make sure I'm not gonna fall asleep through that. Right? Like tonight, like, I know I need to take care of some stuff, and so there's no time for a nap. I don't have time for that today. Guys, whatever that looks like, you got to find a way to tell yourself stuff. Just the other day, man, I sat down for a minute and it would have been the perfect time for a nap. But I'm like, nope, you didn't connect with God today. No nap. Right? Like, get up, go pray, go read the Word, get a little energy back. You'll be all right. You got to start seeing yourself the way that God sees you. Freed us from the slavery of addiction. Bless us in so many ways.
Like it talks about in the Bible, that unity that's going to bring people to Christ.
When you pray those prayers from a place of desperation, no matter what is going on in my life, God has this covered.